We can just go ahead and jump in here. Um, just want to say welcome. I'm glad we got Conrad Kehn here, composer, director, educator, and occasional partner in musical crime. So thanks for
Right,
joining us,
right.
man.
Yeah,
Um,
thanks.
just wanted to set up a little chat and share just what you've been learning here. Briefly, if you just give a quick introduction for folks who may not have had a chance to meet you, just a little bit about yourself, your background, your music. Take it away.
Yeah. So I am a composer and performer and improviser and then educator and arts administrator. So I teach mostly music technology at this point at the University of Denver's Lamont School of Music. I'm an adjunct there. I also teach at the Community College of Denver, two very different populations to be sure. Mostly music technology there as well. I am the director and founder of a modern chamber ensemble called the Playground Ensemble. And so we've got an active concert season, active commissioning program, and then some really innovative music creation programs in the K-12 world. Serve probably 3,000 to 5,000 kids a year. On a good year. This year, not anywhere near those numbers. We usually do a bunch of stuff in May, and that just isn't happening right now.
Right.
And, as a composer, I guess I do whatever is in front of me, but I definitely prefer uh, more abstract and experimental things, to be sure. I'm a singer, and, there's hopefully someday going to be some nice footage of a little duet thing that Evan and I did at Colorado Mesa recently.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's fun.
that program, I still think we came up with a great program there. We need to get that footage available.
Yeah, man. Let's do that at some point.
Yeah, yeah.
I
It's
keep
always the
forgetting
hardest
about
part, right? You come up with the ideas, you do the gig, and then you just don't do any of the back end stuff with the content. It's because it's on to the next gig or day-to-day life or whatever, right?
it. You just need your dream team of interns working for you. There you go.
So I have some. Dream team maybe. No, I've got some. Maybe I should start assigning more of that stuff,
Yeah,
right? Right.
put them to work, man.
I know. There's this line like Playground. I have an intern or an assistant to the director
Right.
in Playground, and I believe their job is to do more Playground things. I've thought about it though. Like if I gave them some of my personal things, I could do more Playground things, right? So
It's
see
a
my
wash, right?
rationalization there.
It's so easy to jump into that. I hear you, man. Yeah. Boundaries.
hmm
So drilling down into your music education side, I'm really interested just when or where, even recently, you might have felt the landscape of music education, sort of how folks are delivering music education. Where have you felt that change? Like, where were you? I mean, it could be recently or it could be something you felt a longer time ago, but
So it's kind of interesting. I mean, obviously, with everybody going to distance everything and lockdown and isolation and stay-at-home orders and that kind of stuff with COVID and all the social distancing and nothing happening face to face, there's a pretty radical shift that happened there. Like, and it happened overnight. Like, I remember it was the last week of classes before spring break at DU, and we had this week of classes. Then there was one leftover class on Monday, and then the next week was finals week, and then it was spring break because we're on quarters at DU.
right.
And so that last week of classes, we started getting messaging like, hey, it looks like we're going to do distance learning, and so we need you to move all your finals online. But you'll have class Monday.
Okay.
And by that started at the beginning of the week. By the end of the week, they were like, you don't have class Monday either. And by Monday, they were like, no one's coming to campus ever again. And so because I teach music technology courses, I don't know. I feel like using technology to deliver your content makes a lot of sense, right? So,
Right.
there's been these products out there, Blackboard or Canvas or Desire to Learn, D2L, we call it.
Hmm.
And there's so many acronyms, right? So they're LMS systems, I think is what they're called.
TLAs, three-letter
yeah,
acronyms. Yes.
yeah, right. And so I've been using those all along. Like most of my content has been online,
Right.
and so that's great. I think the shift right now is how do we make music together online?
Mm.
Like, what are we going to do? We don't know when we're going to be allowed to be around each other. Do we just cease all ensemble playing?
Mm.
Like what does that look like, right? And so, the first step I think was just taking basic tools like Zoom. Everybody went to Zoom right away, right? And
Right.
like, well, can I still do private lessons in Zoom? And we're figuring that out.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a few quick audio settings. You turn off those background suppression things, and
Right.
your audio stays good. Turn on original sound. Maybe enable stereo, because you have to go find that. It would be nice, if the people that design these products were like, yeah, good audio is an extra feature. It's like, why can't that just be the real,
Baked in, right?
yeah, like, why do I have to go into the settings menu to get reasonable sound?
Yeah, I was hunting through all sorts of YouTube videos just trying to figure out what ways to sort of hack this. Because we're doing this on Zoom right here,
Yeah, yep. And so, there's been some things that allow it to be reasonable, I guess. I put together a team of people. So in the playground, we started thinking about, like, well, how are we going to continue to deliver content? And I, in particular, was like, well, how can we deliver education content? The thing to think about right now is that there's two kind of competing things when I think of youth programming right now. One of them is all these kids are at home. So, how do we bring them interactive content? The other is, because of online school, they're also on screens kind of an excessive amount of time.
Right, just the fatigue of that.
Yeah, and so maybe, more screen-based programming isn't really what they need. Although, what options do we have? And so, to me, it feels like maybe the screen isn't the problem as much as is there compelling content on the screen. If we felt like our time wasn't being wasted and we weren't being dumbed down, or just, then maybe it's not an issue. And one of the things that I was noticing is, like, my own kids, I have 2 teenage daughters, they're doing online school.
Right.
And as soon as they jump off the computers for school, they just stare at their phones all day. So is there really an issue with screens?
But it's so much easier to scapegoat the medium and the technology rather than what you're delivering,
Yeah, and at some point too, it's hard as a parent. I'm working from home. My wife is essential.
Right.
She still goes to work. I can't be supervising. Like, I'm so glad that my kids aren't elementary school age and I need to log them on and hold their hands through school.
Right.
Like, I've heard the cries of the parents that are like, we should just bag it. Just stop. We're not going to do this anymore.
Right. Uncle.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I get it. And I remember the day that online school started for my kids, and I just happened to walk through the room. I'd already been back to teaching for a week plus. And, as somebody that is into technology, I did my homework. Like, I checked out all the Zoom features. I started trying to think about how I could deliver content in interesting ways and push. If you think of Zoom as a tool, well, first of all, what features does this tool have? Now, what else can I do? Not just, hey, I can see you. Hello.
Right.
But like, all right,
muted?
well, how, are you muted? But like, well, how am I going to really do my job with this thing? And I just remember walking through the living room, and like, some of the teachers, you could tell it was their first time on Zoom. And I was like, wait, you didn't test this with somebody beforehand? Like, you just showed up to work today. Like, it was like you showed up without pants on or something, I mean,
Which is more tempting on Zoom, but yes.
Right. It's just the lack of preparation on some ends, and not all, there's people on both sides of that,
Right.
And so I have decided to align myself with the people. Like, the thing that I've been saying is, we can't spend another minute lamenting what's lost or what we can't do anymore.
Right.
Now is the time to look forward, to investigate the tools and figure out how we're going to do interesting things with the tools we have. Right. And so I put together a team, and we've just been like working through, like, well, what does this product do? Well, what does this product do? Well, what does this product do? The overwhelming feature that prevents us from doing interesting musical things is the auto mixing thing, where, like, Zoom does it, and almost all of them do it. So if we had a meeting of 7 people and we could see each other, you've noticed, like, there's a little green rectangle that outlines whoever's talking. Zoom is listening, and I believe based on amplitude, I don't know what else it would be, is deciding who you're supposed to hear, and then they squash everybody else.
Yeah, I'm so present to the delay in Zoom as that feature flaw, or a feature that some people are trying to work with, that I'm not thinking often about the mixing
Yeah, see, I kind of gave up on the idea that we could fix the latency. I mean, everything is, as a fellow sound painter, everything right now is.
Right. Enter slowly. Yeah, if you're directing a group, for sure.
Yeah. And that's why, if we could get the auto mix off, we could do fantastic sound painting still in Zoom.
I think so. Yeah.
I think that everything is great. this is going to be, but
Yeah,
you know,
it becomes
sometimes it is
pointless to me.
anyways.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Depending on, you know, where we are as a group and that kind of thing. So, but the auto mix feature is, uh, it's just something that can't be worked around. And the other part of it is I have reached out to some of their tech supports and been
Oh,
like, hey,
really?
how is there a way to turn this off?
Mm-hmm.
And they don't even know what I'm asking them half the time.
Okay.
And you know, if you think about it, like tech support for any product is always going to be answering the most common questions, right?
Of
Like
course.
it's how do I, why isn't my working? You
Yeah,
know,
fill in
like
the blank.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, you know, there've been some emails and calls that I've made where they're just like, what do you mean? Or, you know,
Mm-hmm.
all tech support's been farmed out too. So there's
Right.
times when I feel like my answers, they're like scanning through a sheet trying to find words.
On the standard operating procedure, this
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
fit.
like
Yeah.
this had like four of the same words. Let's read this answer,
Right.
you know, and it's like, that's no,
Yeah.
that's not what I'm talking about.
I'll be interested to see how not only developers like Zoom, but other technologies that are being used or repurposed or hacked or developed or created or invented, just how those will bubble up in this season. You know, it's interesting just for me to watch and sort of see how that might change.
Yeah, you know, and then there's also like this idea of combining tools. Like we've started looking at, well, maybe we can use this for audio, and they just keep Zoom's cameras going,
Huh. Okay.
those kind of things. And so, you know, I don't know if you want a rundown of the tools we've looked at, or you know,
Yeah. Well, whatever you think might be some best practices that you're coming across, or issues you're thinking through for folks who might just be um, not have your leg up as a person in music technology. If someone's just saying, "Oh my goodness, I'm completely lost," you know, what are some
so
ways?
if you're completely lost, this has nothing to do with the tools at all. It has to do with your frame of mind.
Good reminder.
Um, you just have to like what I decided is every day, maybe, but at least every week, I'm going to learn something I didn't know about streaming content, about delivering content, about recording and editing content,
Mm-hmm.
about moving content over the internet.
Right.
Um, like up here, I've got
Uh-huh.
a webcam and a microphone on one of these like radio studio arms, and
Right. I'm doing a
I,
little.
yeah, I change my microphones every couple days just to see what's going on, you
Sure.
know, and
So,
have just started experimenting with even
mhm.
all the things I have in my own house.
Right.
But then just like, well, what does this tool do, and what does this tool do, and that kind of stuff. You know, probably going to spend a little bit of time looking at OBS this week.
Yep. I'm
You
just
know,
getting into that
as
too. Yeah.
and so what I want to try is, can I use OBS as a way to pre-mix a bunch of different content and then move it into Zoom?
That's fascinating. Yeah.
Because Zoom can't do all the things I want to do. So
Right.
can there be a tool before Zoom
In that signal. Yeah.
in that signal?
Hmm.
And then even more complex then is,
Hmm.
can I get signals from other people to
Right.
come into that tool and bring it back to Zoom as maybe our final delivery thing, where it's like picture and sound, but back here we did a
Hmm.
bunch of work in the back. I don't know. We're moving through a bunch of things like that. But what it looks like to me is there isn't. I can't say that yet because I got something we're going to test this week. But I haven't found a lot of great tools that seem to do what we want. You know, if you're new to this, I think
Hmm.
this is your time to learn new things. I mean, isn't the tech floor going to just come up?
Yeah, it's
Like,
a great reminder just to think about how are you approaching this as a lifelong student and educating yourself to stay one
so,
step ahead, you know?
you know, that's one thing that I've thought all the way around with this is, if you are a teacher and you're not interested in learning, I don't know what you're like. I don't, I have doubts, you know, like without being too jagged, like I just don't
No,
know that this is the place for you,
right,
you
right.
know, like
Say it like
this
it is,
is,
man.
yeah, yeah. I would never want to study from someone that wasn't a lifelong learner,
Right.
right? Like curiosity should be at the center of all we do, I think. You know, that just this desire to know more, to learn, to grow, excitement for that kind of thing. And so, yeah, I think in the simplest sense, if you're an educator in music, it's time to buy a USB microphone. They're $100.
Right.
You
Just
know,
throw it down. Yeah, save up.
like,
It's
can't we just consider that a tool of the trade, like your book bag, like your bow for your string instruments, like your rosin,
hmm
like like your mouthpieces? Just get one already.
right, right.
Um,
It's time. It's time,
yeah,
folks.
it
Yeah,
is.
totally.
And if you think things are going completely back to the way they were before, I think you're misguided.
Mm,
I think that the expectations on how we deliver content, and maybe not only that, but the expectation on the other end of, I think students are going to be like, "Hey, you proved to me that I don't have to come to the room.
right.
I think now you have to deliver content in multiple ways."
Yeah,
I
that expectation I had thought about on the receiving end, saying,
hmm
"Hey, like raising the bar not only of the quality of what you're doing and the medium you're using, but also, you know, in a scenario where you can be in person, what is that in person experience, and how does that add even more value beyond just the lecture demo framework?" Because yeah, you're right. If the
yeah,
student says, "Why can't I just be at home on my phone checking this out?" You have to think about what you're doing in the room when you can get in the room.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, one of the things I've done too is when this all happened, and here's the other thing: is all of us that are trying to educate online right now, even the ones who I may have poked at a little bit here, we only had a week to get
Right.
ready,
Oh man.
right? And so I think to some degree, you have to say, look, if I really believe I'm doing the best I can, then I'm doing my job, right? Like, but I still think some of that centers on, did I learn something new this week?
Mm,
Did I learn a new way to deliver information and content in a meaningful way to my students?
right.
For my college classes, I have stayed synchronous, meaning I still meet at the same time and we just have Zoom. And a lot of that is, I started hearing messages early on, even that, I had a lot of colleagues that were like, well, we're going to go to a synchronous learning and I'm just going to post videos once a week and have chat and discussion forums. And I think they were creating some cool content, but I think that people want human interaction, even in this kind of sense.
Right.
And so I've asked my students that, and they've been like, no, I appreciate getting to interact with other people.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I probably am going to start moving to a little bit of a thing where I have them interact with each other more than I have been. It's a
Yeah.
lot of content from me to them and them to me right now. I think I need
Mm-hmm.
to get a little more cross content there. We've got to start coming up with ways to socialize now through this thing.
Right. Yeah, that's a good reminder that the classroom isn't just about like pouring content one way. It's really about
Right.
creating a community. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I do think, like I said, the students I've talked to, they just said, I appreciate the regularity of my schedule right now. Like the fact that you have a class on certain days at a time. I need something regular in my life right now.
Mm-hmm.
I need to see people. I need to, that interaction. And we spend a good anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes of my class at the beginning, just like, how are you today? Tell me something good, especially on Mondays. How was the weekend? And so
Right.
gotta gotta check in a little more. But yeah, what I've spent a bunch of time doing is just trying to say, well, what can I use instead of Zoom too right now? Knowing what the limitations seem to be.
Right.
And so we went out and just started testing competitors. Let's see, where all have we been? I have a list of these in the Google Doc, but there was one called Blue Jeans,
Right.
which actually sounds great from an audio perspective, but still auto mixes you.
Mm-hmm.
Google Meets auto mixes you. I did do a big sound painting workshop with the Santa Fe Youth Symphony in Google Meets, though.
Wow.
And
That's right.
this
Yeah.
is actually, so here is, I think, an example through anecdote of what educating in this time looks like. So they have about 80 kids that were still 80 to 100 kids that were still logging in regularly as they were delivering online content because they can't rehearse anymore, so they had to come up with stuff. And so what I did is 4 back-to-back 30-minute sound painting sessions,
Mm-hmm.
which was, man, I was tired by the end of that. And you've been with me when we go into the schools and stuff, so I kind of did
Sure.
my thing. I start teaching gestures, And then, so the first thing I do is just a long tone thing and go. And so whole group, long tone, enter slowly. And then I can't really hear. And I can hear one trombone because it's louder than everybody else, right? And so, I developed a series of scanning, and I did this by talking to Christian Pincock based on where
In
my
Seattle.
arm
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I wasn't, but because you can't hear anything, I found it really ungratifying. And so it took me 1/2 hour session, and I realized that the best way to keep them engaged, because is that not what this is about?
Right.
This is about their engagement. Was like, all right, so I teach gestures, and then I have them do gestures while I perform them. And so I ended up, because I sing, I had my melodica and I had my wrenchophone, that percussion instrument we built out of wrenches.
Nice.
And so I had, right away where change discipline, percussion, change discipline, woodwind, change discipline, voice, and so every new gesture, I was like, all right, who's going? Who's painting me?
Nice.
And so I became the band.
There, you were in the hot seat. Yeah.
I was in the hot seat, but it was so fun and it worked. Like it was still the same. There was still the same understanding of the gestures. It wasn't quite the same as if they were playing,
Right.
but I had to shift on the fly. They couldn't hear each other anyway. So why am I like, whole group, pointillism, lots of space when they can't hear each other? What? I don't know. I know we're supposed to be blinders on, but that doesn't still work, and
But that's a good reminder too, just being adaptable in the moment to what the situation needs.
Yeah. And so I left there pretty excited, and I got to get clear on what I can do with them. But the orchestra conductor took a bunch of screenshots, and so I've got these like gridded out squares of the kids all doing different gestures, and
Fun.
and it was super fun, and it's really, if you're saying that in and of itself is an example, not a step-by-step how-to. But what I had to do was, first of all, say yes. I had to say yes to delivering something I wasn't sure how I was going to deliver.
Yeah.
And then in the moment, I had to just be fast enough to say, okay, this is where the tool is limiting me. And this is where, because the other problem I had is I didn't own Google Meets, and you can only get that if you're part of an organization.
Right.
So I had to kind of go through one and then come out the other end and get it all shifted around. But I felt really good about it when it was done, because I still was able to deliver high energy content. There were a lot of smiles and a lot of laughter. And, and when you do that, well, who's going next? There were
Right.
people that wanted to go next,
Right. Yeah.
and so
I think adaptability is going to have to be the prime virtue going forward in any context. So
absolutely.
So before your dogs go crazy here, if folks want to know more about how to get in touch with you or follow your work, what's a good way for them to find you?
You can always go to playgroundensemble.org. I wish I spent more time on my personal things and maybe, or Playground has grown into this amazing thing that has just kind of consumed my life. So you can find where a lot of my time and effort goes there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
ConradKehn.com is always out of date and poor, you know how web pages are. They're completely necessary and always out of date.
Right.
But it's just KEHN, ConradKehn.com, and you can reach me there. And from there, I prefer, if you really want to know what I'm doing, it's the interaction piece. Just let's social media or emails or whatever. We can start talking about some things. One thing that's kind of exciting is right before the whole world changed, I premiered a piece for spatialized like surround audio in planetarium domes.
Oh, fun.
And with a video with a filmmaker, a friend of mine, Nicole Escobar from Kansas City. And the video content of our show at the Otterbox Planetarium Dome in Fort Collins just went up on the Playground YouTube channel. And so it's, I don't know, it's my favorite thing. You know how the newest thing you've done is always the best piece you've ever written?
Oh, always.
So I'm pretty into this one right now. There's
Excellent.
A lot going on, and it's pretty stunning too. We kind of set the video up that you can see the entire dome in this fisheye lens with me down in the corner, little tiny, but then we also kind of pictured what it looked like with me close up right here.
Nice.
So you can see me running my laptop setup and doing a lot of singing, and
I love it. Love all you're doing. Well, cool.
Yeah, man. It's good
times. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for inviting me to do this.
Of course.
I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, until the next, man.
Yeah, yeah.